Let's talk about China. Many consider China to be one of, if not the biggest geopolitical risks for the U.S. Let's talk a little bit about their president, Xi Jinping. What kind of a person is he? What's his background? How is he manifesting himself in the government?
He is the head of China. That makes him smart. It makes him ruthless. It makes him like the great leader of any country. And he's dominating China to the extent possible to try to hold it together.
Beyond what would be considered normal.
Well, China has historically been dictatorships. Mao Zedong. China has frequently been regionalized so that it doesn't have a center. China is a complex country. There's no one model that always holds. Given the economic crisis, given the sociological realities of China, the danger for China is that regional powers will take over. That is, the party in Shanghai will not want to give money to the interior, pull away. These sorts of things are the real danger. Xi's primary goal is to manage the change in the way in which the Chinese economy works. China, for 30 years, was a low-wage, high-growth economy, like Japan before it. This ended, helped by the 2008 crisis. By ending, it means a change in life for Chinese. Their expectation that they would go to Shanghai or Hong Kong and get a job as a waiter. That's gone. It's not completely gone, but it's pretty much gone. Xi has set himself as the goal, saying in spite of these centrifugal forces pulling China apart, he's going to hold it together. And the dictatorship he's imposed and the purges and everything he's done are built to try to hold China together in spite of the change.
So let's talk about that a little bit. The corruption purges that have been happening, go right to the top. Is this really Xi looking to root out corruption and have a more pure form of government?
Well, if the government is going to have the resources to do what it has to do, it can't leave all the wealth in the hands of private hands. And it's going to have to be sure that what wealth is in private hands is properly managed. So yes, it is an anti-corruption drive, but it's also a drive designed to make sure that there is no one inside the party, no matter how senior, especially how senior, who could be a threat to Xi and this centralization drive. So you both have corrupt people being arrested and corrupt people who are thinking bad thoughts about Xi. And you're also using these things to intimidate other people by letting them know that everybody is vulnerable, including you. What he's trying to do here is hold the country together with the only means he has, the threat of arrest, and showing that no matter how senior you are in the security services, if he thinks you need to be arrested, you will be.
When we in the West see social media posts from dissidents or protesters in China, some of them fairly high profile, some of them members of the elite, even of the party, are they being allowed to do this because the system is opening up a bit, or are they really putting themselves at risk?
They're putting themselves at enormous risk, and there's fewer and fewer such people taking that risk. The China that was there 5 years ago that was opening up, that discussion is done. China is not opening up. They're closing down. The question at hand is, if China closes down, will that be enough to hold China together? Or will it drift apart? So we used to have the debate, will it liberalize, won't it liberalize? That's answered. Now the question is, will it break apart into regions, as was the case in the middle of the 19th century till 1947? Or is it going to stay together as a unitary state? That's the question.
How does the military action of China fit into all of this lately? The buildup in the South China Sea, aircraft carriers under construction, certainly a lot of propaganda related to their military, taunting of U.S. pilots in the South China Sea. What does all that mean?
Well, on land, remember, the People's Liberation Army is more of an internal security unit than it is a military that's going to war. Hard for China to go to war to the north of Siberia, To the south of the Himalayas and the jungles, and to the west is endless grasslands. How do you go to war? Who do you go to war with? The Chinese have one fear. They are a trading nation now. They export. They export through the East and the South China Sea, and that's surrounded by islands, and the U.S. Navy could, if it wanted, relatively easily close off China's access. And the Chinese know that the Americans' first move is to place sanctions on a nation and blockade. Their fear is that the United States is going to do this, so they're trying to find a way to open up, to force the South China Sea open. But as you said, they don't have aircraft carriers. They have aircraft carriers being built. And people don't understand, having an aircraft carrier doesn't mean you have force, because you have to have cruisers, destroyers, and everything else. And above all, you have to have an admiral. So in order to fight a carrier battle group, you need somebody who's trained in that. And the only people who train you to become an admiral is other admirals. And they've never done this before. So the Chinese are far away from being able to challenge the United States, for example. They will settle for agreements with countries like Taiwan or Philippines or Indonesia, guaranteeing their passage. It's very important to bear in mind that thus far, for all the talk, there's been no military action in South China Sea. And it tells you what the Chinese are up to.
So she is trying to hold the country together desperately. How's he doing? How stable would you say that?
I would say that at this point he's doing extremely well. One of the questions is going to come is how bad is the economic situation going to get? And that's going to depend mostly on the American economies. China was first to Europe, then to the United States. In a very interesting way. The future of China depends on Walmart and Carrefour. Will they be able to sell the level of products that they have in the past? Will it improve? Because if they have to depend solely on internal consumption, it's going to be a very tough road.
So if she were to lose power, is there an obvious group that would fill the vacuum, or is it more of a chaotic transition?
Well, I think then the question is, each region has a chief, party chief. The regions have very different interests. She is trying to make certain that those interests are harmonized, whether by bludgeon or by interest. And she is also trying to make absolutely certain that the central government survives. If she doesn't survive, it's very difficult to imagine who will replace him, who has the power and the credibility. You will see, I think, Russian session.
Why hasn't she and the party done anything or done more about North Korea?
They find North Korea very useful. Every time North Korea does something, the North Koreans don't talk to the Americans. The Americans run to the Chinese. The Chinese talk to North Koreans. They come back to the Americans and they say, we've got a lot under control right now. Now, after they've done you this huge favor, it's very hard for the Americans to demand this or that from the Chinese. It's a mode of deflection. I don't know how much coordination there is between the North Koreans and the Chinese. I suspect rather less. But it's very clear that for China, North Korea has a function, as it's had for a very long time, of making the United States dependent on China to handle its problem.
Is North Korea dependent on China?
North Korea is dependent on everybody. It's a small, weak country surrounded by really major powers, and it needs its nuclear program, not nuclear weapons, nuclear program, as a bargaining chip to keep itself going. And it's learned very well that the United States in particular has a phobia about nuclear weapons. The development of nuclear weapons frightens the United States, and that fear is going to result in, through the Chinese directly, trying to find some sort of combination with the North Koreans. Therefore, the North Koreans become more bellicose, more incoherent in the things they say. And they know from long experience that this is a good way to manage the Americans.
At what point could that flip on them? I mean, if the South Koreans lose patience,
Well, the South Koreans certainly don't want to have to unite with the North Koreans and adopt their they saw what happened to Germany. They don't need this now in particular.
So they would just assume North Korea be contained, and then that's that.
If you take a look at what actually has happened since the end of the Korean War, everybody has had the same policy. Let's contain North Korea. Let's not bring down the government, and let's proceed. Just ignore what people say. That's what they do. And the North Koreans know what the threshold is. At the point where they have deliverable nuclear weapons, you may flip the U.S. to doing something about it. So far, they've been very careful not to develop deliverable nuclear weapons, just underground tests that have no threat.